Hi Dana, I'm about to make orange cranberry scones. I've already made one batch, so my counter's already a little bit messy. And I'm about to make my second batch, and I'm gonna show you what I did. So far in here is all my dry ingredients, which would be the flour, the sugar, baking powder, salt, cran raisins, and I've already zested the orange in there. I just used my zester and zested it up. And I will say all those ingredients that I just mentioned, at times when I know I want it the next morning, all that fits in one sandwich bag, and I just put it on the counter, and then in the morning all I have to do is add my wet ingredients. So the next thing I do, I just cubed up some cold butter out of the refrigerator, and I'm gonna mix it with my hands because that just seems to work best for me. Oh, before I do that, I need to create some buttermilk. This recipe calls for buttermilk, which I never have on hand, so I just make my own. I put 1 lid of lemon juice at the bottom of my half cup. And then I'm gonna add my milk into that lemon juice. And somehow buttermilk is created. I know there's other versions, but that's the way I do it. It just seems to work for me. Now, while that's turning into buttermilk, I'm going to get this butter mixed up into this dry ingredients. And I just squish that butter through all this dry ingredients. You're gonna have clumps of butter. I just never can get rid of all of them. I really don't try, but I try a little bit. Get all that kind of in there. Squish that butter a little bit, the best you can. And then what I do, I make a little bit of a hole, a hollow spot in the center of that. I put 1 egg inside my bowl and I whisked it. I'm pouring that down in there. And then I'm going to put my buttermilk in here. And now I'm going to mix the dry ingredients in with that and try to get that all mixed up. This is gonna end up being a wet mess, and I'm gonna show you what to do to be able to handle the scone mix after it's all mixed in. Okay, I try to get to the bottom so all those dry ingredients are mixed up. So if I try to scrape this off my spatula right now, it's just sticky. It'll just stick to my hands. So I have flour on my counter, and I have flour sitting out, and I'm just gonna put a little bit on my hands. I'm gonna put a little bit in here, and I put some flour right on top of that scone mixture that's on my spatula. That way I could get it off without it sticking to my hand. I'm gonna get a little more flour on my hands, a little more flour in here, and then I'm gonna get this out on the counter. Okay, here's your scone mix right here. It's kind of wet, so that's why I've got my flour out. And I'm gonna just turn it into a little bit of a ball. I'm gonna flop it to this side because the other side got flour on it, so now I want both sides with flour on it so I can work with it. I'm gonna kind of pat it down and kind of keep it round like that. Pat it a little bit more. It's like the size of my hand from fingertip to wrist, and I like that size. And now I'm gonna cut it into like a pie, but because this is so wet and I have to use my knife, I dip my knife right into my flour container, and I just kind of saw at this. Dip again. Dip. It's going to look like 8 little tiny scones, but once they bake, they get larger. And I'm going to show you what they look like after they're baked because I already have a batch done. Okay, so I cut it. It's still going to be really hard to get off because it's so sticky. And I will tell you, I've only baked these on a baking stone. I can't imagine them not working just fine on a cookie sheet. I just happen to always use a baking stone because I have one and that's what works for me. I actually take this, I dip it right into my flour, and then I try to carefully separate each little scone and scoop it up like this. And then I'm gonna put each one of these on my baking stone, which is already over here. And then I'll put it in the oven, and I'm gonna show you what my scones look like when they come out.